pressed, and then somehow when your soul says, oh, we're at the mile marker and we need to have you over here, it's how is the transition? How are you going to change from one identity over to the next part of your next phase? You can reinvent yourself and anticipate, and knowing that the expectancy is something's going to happen. Change always occurs. Being ready, looking for how you can adjust and flow easily and create that new part of yourself. Or you can live in horror and endure the hell because you don't want to do it, and so then your soul's really saying to you, how many times do you want me to present this to you? And you actually get to decide. But if you're not consciously participating and all you know how to do by group consciousness, and your soul says, squash it down, get rid of it, let it go, ignore it, deny it. Okay? And your soul's saying, okay, you want to do that at least 30 times, so that means we're going to give you a whisper, bee sting, and now we have to hit rock bottom, force you to change because there's a party that needs to go in this direction. Now some people get forced and knocked down, but live in rock bottom. And learn to have their standards at that. They don't want to move forward, and they can't cope anymore, and they're overwhelmed that they become indifferenced. And indifference needs to be healed and have closure to it. But when you get to there, then that's usually where a person just starts to live in a non-state of really existing.
You're kind of coasting.
Yeah, and you'll coast until you die. I mean, you pray and sit there and go, oh, I'd like to win $1 million, or I'd like to do this, or I'd like to do that. But because you're not consciously participating in doing certain things, well, I bought a ticket. Well, that's better than the one guy that kept praying to the statue saying, oh, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to win the lottery. And the statue comes to life and, excuse me, but in order to win the lottery, you got to buy a ticket first. In this case, you have purchased it, but you have to have all of you. Because when you don't bring your whole self in, then you're not really going to receive the achievements, and you're not going to be able to get it. The whole self, for instance, my husband. I watched this, we all do it, but I was able to sit back and be in observation mode. And when he's trying to put up a shelf, or he has to do electrical work, or he has to do something on the farm, and his whole self's not there, he's not going to be able to fully brainstorm and see the full picture and create the frontal lobe to see how easy it could be. So he would have to start something that would take 15 minutes, takes 4 hours later. It's like, dang! That was a waste of my time, but I'm glad it's done. Where I've watched him bring his whole self, sit down, and what's he do? He's literally sits down and boom, 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 boom. His whole self, everything's firing, his frontal lobe's creating, he's brainstorming, he's bringing the energy in, he's doing all of it, so much so that, bam, it's done within 15 minutes or so. And he's got a great result. He knows where to go. All of it just links up and synchronizes together. And so I've learned that when my life is starting to spin, I'm not bringing my whole self to the situation. Okay?
When it starts to feel like it's effort, when it feels like that project is just, oh my God, it feels like I'm just pushing that rock up the mountain and I'm never going to get there.
Right.
That is when your whole self is not engaged. It just is so much effort to do anything. But when your heart is into it, when you say, oh my gosh, I've got so much passion, I've got I've got all this lined up, and boom, it becomes effortless.
Exactly, and that's a good point. If it becomes effort, you become frustrated, you become, well, any of that stuff, understand, step back. There's a party that didn't want to do it. Your heart's not in it, and your heart will tell you whether or not you're in it or not. Okay, it makes sense. Smelling a smell that's, they're like, oh, I didn't fart. No, I didn't fart. Well, it's not that. It's just there's a certain smell that didn't smell pretty. Well, I'm trying to help you explain what the smell is. And I said, okay, so is there a spirit here? Yes. But it wasn't anything significant. They go, no, it was for me, because nobody else could smell it. And what it ended up pointing to was that the bashfulness. And so I linked a certain smell to go and become bashful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the olfactory center part of the brain that distinguishes what smell is linked right with our memories.
Yes.
And so fragrance and odor triggers that memories. Or perhaps an automatic response, so that when you smell that, yes, oh, I know, because it was one of those first times in your life where you probably had that smell, and then you had to do a certain behavior. So from that point on, it became that kind of trigger.
And so as I'm asking, okay, so what about this bashfulness? And it says it goes into your water system, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, so it's the emotional part. And it goes into wallowing. This is part of that pessimistic part of me that I could never understand why exists, because I knew I had to hide being optimistic, because everybody that says that I was smiling and happy, they couldn't stand it. What's she up to? What's wrong with her?
You know, you're being a Pollyanna for no reason.
And it was like I was told it was bad to be happy. So it's like as soon as I have to become bashful, and the only way that I can function is that I have to wallow. The next thing to get over my bashfulness is to wallow, because that's how people act. I'm so done with it. I'm done. So I know that I need to have closure, and the first thing I'm going to be having closure to, I guess, is looking and dressing that strategy of the bashfulness and up to the smell of noticing the smells, because I shut that down. Your nose is related to your root chakra, which is your first,
And also,
down by the perineum, the taint part.
and you're bonding.
And you're bonding, because when you're born, you get the sense of smell, but then you root for the milk, like any other animal does, to start nourishing yourself. And in the bonding process of the way the brain is, you smell for those chemicals that your mother and your father and all these people put off. And if you don't have that, and then you will then start shutting certain things down. For me, the bashfulness, the abandonment, all had to do with certain smells, which led to the wallowing, so that I could be accepted, because I knew that everybody hated how bashful I became, and so that would be something that they would all wallow and complain about. Well, the only way to fit into that family was to become wallow, and now I can actually heal that out of my life so that she can stop showing up as wallow.
Yay! Because
Yay.
I'm doing the active part of healing that part out of my life of how I would wallow in situations, because that's not going to serve me either as we move forward.
Exactly. Now this leads us to what's interesting was we were watching Charmed and other stuff, but I never quite thought about it before. There was a person that became such a shut-in, emotional disorder, and they were explaining, oh, that person is a future empath, and that means that they feel the world such a kinesthetic way, and mentally and emotionally they hear all the cries and the cares of the world, all the pain and the suffering, and there's no way to process this, so they shut down. And that apparently is to help them prepare so that when they become mortal in the next life, they can actually understand and help people. That is another way to say that you are gathering experiences so that you can help and understand the human nature of people. So as they die and they return as empaths, they be counselor, elders, teachers, and it's funny because both of us are ministers, and we're both extreme empaths, to the point that if you're a shut-in, you don't have the tools to know how to process, and you don't know where to go from there. You're rejecting it. You know, they call it a gift. We all have it to some degree, but some have it increasingly more. So there's a part of you that just says, I don't want to do it. Now, to embrace that gift is what I've been doing, learning that that is part of my nature, that I'm meant to do this. To the point that you did something, you were thinking something, she came in, she sat behind me, and I knew she was there. I knew she wanted attention, but I was in the middle of doing whatever, and I don't even remember what it was. All I know is that instantaneously I had to run to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom and I say, okay, what is this emotion that my physical body is taking a beating for? What's going on? And I checked, it wasn't me, and I said, well, what's my surroundings? Yes, and I can't even remember what it was.
Oh, that was yesterday. Oh,
Yeah.
because I had come in because I wanted a muscle test, but I saw that you were working, so I didn't want to disturb. But it was the emotion of, we just started working on the fact that I don't want to, which relates to somehow my attention.
And you know, you don't want to interrupt your mother and your father because you always got yelled at. No, you always have bad timing, blah, blah, blah.
Well, it's how to insert yourself and be respectful.
And all I know is that she wanted my attention. That's why he says, okay, you got my full attention. And as soon as I agreed to consciously acknowledge her, my body goes, oh, okay, we don't have to do that anymore. And so then everything just stopped, went back to normal. All right, got that done, out of the way. And then I turn around, facing my computer again, and all of a sudden, apparently she had another thought that she had to do something. I started to choke. I turn around, okay, what is it? She giggles like that and smiles. So we addressed it, and my throat went back to normal. And so everything was good, okay? So as I'm getting ready to teach class, I teach an empowerment through enlightenment on, well, you know, it depends on which day of the week. Yesterday was Thursday, and next week I'm going to have it on Friday. And so everybody's starting to pour in to some degree. And she was doing dishes. My husband's running around doing what he's got to do. And they're helping, right? Well, I'm trying to get this last piece of paper done because I know a lady's going to come and pick up this brochure I just made for my bobble wands. And that's a form of healing tool, too. You can always go to mwreveal.com, the healing tools, and look under bobble wands. But I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden my stomach starts to go sick again. And I'm like, oh my God. So I go running to the bathroom, and then I said, okay, what's this about? Nope, not mine. Is it Jen's again? Yes. Why? She's in the kitchen thinking about how you're not acknowledging that she's helping. Ah, crap. Literally. I said, okay. Come out of the bathroom. I says, Jen. She goes, yes. I recognize and acknowledge that you're doing these dishes for me and helping to be part of the family. So I acknowledge you, and you're welcome, and thank you. And I went and sat down, and my body was fine then. You know, there was a part of her that, did you want to be addressed? Did you, in a way, we're thinking that, you know, hope that they see that I am helping in the family?
Possibly. I may have had fleeting thoughts. It may have been part of those thoughts that we don't consciously acknowledge.
Exactly, out of the 41. But I totally acknowledge. And I've seen you do this before. I mean, and I do it with clients. I will turn around and answer the question that they can't consciously think of. They're like, what? I wasn't thinking that. I says, have you ever thought of it before? Oh, yeah. Well, aren't you glad you got the answer? Yeah. And it's just one of those funny things that happen. So, to be an empath is that you feel your environment. Now, I'm an extreme person that feels my environment. I don't mean to. I can always tell now whose thoughts are mine and what thoughts are not. Like I was dreading class, and I'm thinking, I don't dread class. And finally, after a couple months, it took me that long to figure it out. Jen, is there a class you don't want to do? She said, maybe. And I like, oh God, okay. So I acknowledged it. I said, I hate doing this. You can have your stuff back. And so then, when I had class yesterday, it was fine. She's really here to help me learn all about how to be this empath and to accept it coming in and to acknowledge it.
And it's your fine-tuning process that you're doing, because you teach us how to do fine-tuning as intuitives. But this is, for whatever reason, it feels like it's just on such a deeper level.
Yes, I would say yes, because to really look at the quantum law of attraction of how we as humans work, it's an incredible thing. But then going on the quantum law of attraction to see how spirit, our true identity, functions with this human form and how we're doing it in this era and this frequency that we're living in. And we do live in this frequency. We're moving out of the Hertz frequency, which doesn't mean it's going to disappear. We're just going to be moving more into the energy of the infrared. And that's going to be more present. So everybody's learning to adjust, doing the transition. Some people don't do it well. Some people are doing it just fine. But being that empath, it's very much, like she says, you fine-tune. You work with it. In the show, the emotions and these thoughts and the self-talk and the chemical peptides, and she was fine. She said, I can handle this. Well, her body wasn't made to equip to do it, but because she can be told that she can, she was talked into, okay, embrace the energy that's flowing through and use it to your advantage, and she did. She was able to take and bring it through and use it for a better, higher purpose, which gave her the strength she needed to do what she had to do. It was like a big, huge energy burst into the gift that she already had. And then once it fizzled out, it fizzled out. So, let me just look here. We had another issue, or another thing somebody asked me, and we are going to talk about the next thing somebody had wrote me. So if you do have a question, all you have to do is write me. You can go to the mwreveal.com and look under contacts. We have our email there, which is mwr@myself.com, or you can email me personally at bbmw@doctor.com. That's dr.com. So this question came in, and the person says, okay, it was something that I had posted, and it was a picture, because I have a health series that I do on my fan page, and the picture was this woman that says, okay, thyroid. It's hyperthyroid and hyper and hypo. She says, well, now I'm so low at the totem pole they won't give me any more medicine, and she still can feel herself being off. And I said, there's a lot of things you can do. One of the things that you could do, and I don't know if I can explain this very well over the radio, but what do you call this? The hollow part of your neck, right where the collarbone is? Okay, right where your throat is?
It's typically, is that where the Adam's apple is on a man?
Well,
No,
Adam's
Adam's
apple a
apple's
little
right
higher.
here.
Okay, it's
But
a little
it's-
higher.
it's
Okay,
a
It's
so
just
little-
about where the
But there is
neck
a-
touches the
but there is a
collar.
hollow part with the collarbone.
And if you are going to watch this later, you're going to watch it on a video. But anyway, it says hollow part represents kind of where the thyroid is. Well, right where your doctor would check on either left side or right side where your glands are, and it's just below the chin line, so you can kind of feel it. All this underneath your chin is lymphatic. Okay, so if it sticks and fills up with fluid, it's usually, you've got a slow lymphatic. You need to exercise to get the junk out so that your lymphatic system can flow. That's one reason, main reason why you exercise, so your immune system get better. But anyways, right off to the side. So I put my fingers on the hollow part, and I put my 1 or 2 fingers, or even 3 fingers, up underneath where your glands are under your chin. Okay, and you would actually hold this. Now, I don't know, let me see about you. Come here, let me move my arm for a minute. And I'm going to check right here, I'm going to test by touching the hollow, and I'm going to test the right side. It's strong, and if I touch the hollow and touch the right side, his thyroid
Left
is,
side?
right, whatever that side is, it's off. So now what I want you to do is, touch your hollow part. Now take this right hand, or left hand, and put it on your left side. So he's going to do this. And he's just going to hold it and breathe. And that'll help readjust the hormones that are going on in his thyroid. I'm going to check Jen next. So fingers in the hollow part. And then, so I'm going to touch the hollow, and I'm going to touch right there underneath on, what side am I on? The right side?
It's my right side.
Okay, so tap, tap. It's nice and strong. Do the left side, tap, tap. And your left side is out. So you touch
Imagine
the hollow
that.
part. And
Being
you
the
What are
same
the
as
odds?
me.
okay, and then hold those points. And all you're doing is holding soft, not hard, and you're just going to do it usually up to 2 minutes if you're off. And so he had gone. Let's check and see. I'm going to hold this point and this point. It's nice and strong. It could get stronger because you can go, okay, on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being you want it to be nice and balanced. I'll find out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he could hold it actually a little longer to make it come stronger. Okay? Another thing about the thyroid,
What's this do?
balances your thyroid so that your parathyroid and your thyroid start to communicate with the rest of the situation. Alrighty, and I probably will have to put up about the fact to balance the rest of the hormones. The thing about the thyroid is the lady says, okay, so why am I low on it? Now here's the question, why is it this woman, why is her thyroid even having any issues at all? Now, some people say I'm born without it, some people say I've had it removed. You have phantom thyroid, which is the energy is still there, the imprint of it's still there. And if you have any issues, you could have been, let's say you fell and hit your throat, that can create a disturbance in the energy field around your thyroid. You would have to clean that out. But what we're going to do is we're personally going to take and do a reading for her, and I'm going to ask why is her thyroid off, and it goes into the right and wrong. And first of all, that right and wrong, simply let's put it this way. To me, there is no right or wrong. It's the way you define it for yourself and the company you keep. If I were to go, and when I first moved into Scott's house, after we got married. It was his house, which was fine. There was a right way and a wrong way to do things if we were going to look at it that way. And his habit was that he wanted to keep the trash by the door, and I didn't want it, but then I didn't know how to communicate that, okay? So there is the right way and the wrong way. Well, that's not necessarily true. It's the way he defines where he wants to put the trash where I wouldn't want to do it. Then I went to his mother's house, and his mother has the right way and the wrong way that she lives. And so
I call those default settings.
Oh, very good.
Because
very good.
That's what your pattern and your routine becomes. It becomes a default setting. So when you go to someone else's, it's almost like, well, why isn't the trash there?
Exactly.
Because it's a default
and they're
setting
doing it wrong.
That you know.
Yeah, and they're doing it wrong. But this is where it gets confusing about right and wrong. So when you go to different places, there is their way, it is their routine, and you're learning to have a relationship and coming together. Now, a person don't want to change their habit, they're going to probably say, you're doing it wrong, let me do it, show you. Now, there is probably a better way to do certain things.
More efficient.
More efficient, something that maybe you didn't see the perspective on it in that way. Doesn't mean you were dumb, it just means you needed a fresh pair of eyes and they had come in. Now, how they deliver it has been very important too. So I take these videos, and when YouTube would only allow 15-minute videos, I had to cut 2 hours up, and that meant you had to put a title and a credit on each one of them, and then find where you have to splice it and put it all together. It was a lot of work. And so you're making all these individually out of the 2 hours. He had come in, and as he says, okay, I'll help you, and I says, well, was showing him how I was doing it, what I wanted done, first what I wanted done, so how it's presented, and he kind of was interfering, going, well, if you did this and this and that. I says, well, wait a minute, just let me tell you what I want, okay? You can do it any way any way you want, as far as how he's going to get it cut and split, okay? Well, that was us. So then, his way is to see it, and then he don't want to lose it, so he'll talk as over me or butt into the middle of my sentences, and so there's the way to do it, and I have to get out of that frustration mark because we've been together for so long, and just say, okay, there's a gem in here, let's just stop, look at the gem, because I really do want to make this more efficient so all these videos aren't taking me forever. So there's a way that people can show you, but when you start to clash is when you become out of sync. When you're in sync, man, it's cool because you get to hear what other people say, hear their epiphanies.
It's like when you're playing tennis and you lob the ball and you serve it and it just goes back and forth.
Easy
and back
yeah.
and forth.
Very good.
And there's a rhythm that comes into, and you start anticipating where it's going to go so that you can hit it back to the other person.
Exactly.
And so that's, to some degree, being in sync.
Yeah. So,
but when you're out of sync, you keep hitting the ball, and then that person...
How many times can you aggravate them on the other side? Sometimes
Exactly.
you deliberately will be out of sync just to make them angry.
Right.
Is that part of a rebel part too?
Probably, if you want to.
So you're
have
provoking.
Provoking,
okay.
And it's kind of like you go up and you poke the bear.
Ah.
Some people
yes.
like to do that, and some people don't.
Yeah, my husband always called me the bear, and he said, I don't want to poke you. I'm like, well, there's no fun in that. Anyways, that's another story. So, alright, so now I'm going to look, and so this woman, again, it's that right from wrong. So what I want you to do is heal the idea that I have to do it the right way, and it's the intensity of how you feel like you have to do it the right way. It's not that you won't be able to do it in the way the world says, the right way or the wrong way, because the right way is that you don't kill people, okay? You have compassion, and the wrong way would be to kill people and not have compassion. We're not saying that. We're saying it's the individual default programs that everybody has.
Right, and the point is, as soul coaches and medicine women, what we do is simply, where are you losing energy?
Yes.
If your body is supposed to be running at a certain rhythm and energy and that kind of thing, where are you losing energy to something that is unhealthy?
Right.
And so it's not right, it's simply, where are you losing energy? Because you want that life force back. You want to become healthier.
Exactly. And then we don't say right and wrong. We say healthier. Either healthy or unhealthy. Because it is about that alignment that your soul wants you to be in. And it's all about relationships. So I'm going to go a little further now. And what else about this woman and her thyroid? Why is her thyroid acting the way it is? There's a great amount of grief that she has, but she doesn't store it in her lungs as much as she stores it in her thyroid. Because it slows down the metabolism, and it's creating a cushion, a barrier, okay?
Protection?
A protection from what I see. So, like, the reason that people will put on weight is because they can't take any more in. They can't metabolize, because your thyroid is about metabolizing. And you can't take and process any more in, so therefore you create a barrier around yourself. Now what's interesting is that when people have those, the fat tummies areas and the Dunlaps and whatever it is that hangs over, they say that's just too much cortisol coming from the adrenals. It's just too much. It's too much. Well, if you're constantly in stress, you're going to create too much. And if your thyroid says, I can't keep up with you, and your brain says, oh my God. So when the endocrine system is off, then you can't process, then you've got to store it somewhere. And most of the fat that's around your stomach is because you are unable to process. And it is a protective barrier. Because yesterday, you're looking at me funny.
I'm having a major epiphany.
Oh, awesome. At least you're quiet. He scares me.
I wasn't loud.
No, but you were like, oh! But anyways, yesterday, what's interesting is that, like I said, we were watching, we were watching Charmed, and the guy was too much thoughts from other people, too much emotions, and he didn't know how to process it. And then when the girl walked in the room, he's, oh my God, you got a toothache, get away from me. And what happens is, this is where I always talk about Carly Fleshman. She is that autism girl, and she's learned to communicate through the computer, and thank God she has all these machines, because then she can be just as normal as you and I. But
she's hilarious.
She's awesome, funny. But when she has to use her sensory system, and when it gets too much, it literally causes pain. It's not the same kind of pain as if you cut your wrist and or push on a pressure. But so him and my daughter were just talking. They were interacting about the computer and the printer and his computer and how she's using it and how he doesn't like the way she uses it. And it was nothing big. There was no scream match. There was no denigration. I mean, really, it wasn't anything bad.
It was a conversation.
It was a conversation, but the energy was not really positive. But it was enough that I literally started to go to indifference. And I kept looking at my stupid Facebook page over and over.
It's a
checkout.
Like,
it's my checkout. And I'm like, what the heck? And I'm noticing I am checking out because I don't know how to process this frequency. And again, they did nothing wrong except for have a conversation. And Jen was feeling it too. So you were checking out in a different way, correct?
Yeah, but the energy and the frequency actually started to agitate my heart.
Yeah, you physically felt it. Yes, that's right. So again, it's all about a process. Now, him and my daughter, they love each other and they get along, and it's just that just the way that we could feel them being out of sync, and we could feel the differences, and we could feel the conflict, even though they didn't voice it.
Right, and it wasn't a major conflict. It was this, that, the other thing.
But we could feel when it was out of alignment.
Yeah.
And so it was enough that it started to aggravate both her and me.
It's like when I know when we're out of sync.
Oh, instantly we know.
And it starts to agitate in the same way. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to get back in sync.
Yeah, and because one day I was not really out of sync as much as I was. I wasn't detached, because there's different ways of detaching. When you are in a relationship for so long and you get build-up of resentment and anger, you detach yourself so that you just, I don't want to do it anymore, right? Am I explaining it right?
Yes.
Okay. But then there's the detached, which is, I went into observation mode, which means I took my energy with me, and it was not that I wasn't sharing, it's just that I had taken all of me to observe what was happening, and she was like, where'd you go?
Yeah, it's when, Eckhart Tolle talks about stepping out of your pain body to become that observer, where life, that is your life, hello, these are your people, your friends, and where you are in life, become a movie. It's like a scene in a movie that you're watching. But if you go into that observation mode, you've taken your energy with you, and I know that we all have those entanglement cords that go to each other, our friends and relationships and acquaintances and that kind of thing. But all of that had gone with it because you were just, I'm observing. I'm just simply watching what is going on.
But my facial expression, you know, normally you look at people and you're like, oh my God, what's wrong? And I have a permanent frown, it looks like, on my face. And I think it's just the way my jaw's built as well. And through time of stress and the water in my body, I have a permanent frown. Everybody says, would you just smile more? And I'm thinking, I am smiling. You know, it's like, you want me to show my teeth? I don't know. So she felt the energy disappear between us in that entanglement cord. And it wasn't that I was pulling away or being mean and I'm not going to share myself. I was in that observation mode. And I said, she looked at me funny, you're right? Oh yeah. I said, so do you know?
Am I putting up a certain vibe or something?
Yeah, because I was curious because that was another observation mode. And her answer was quite unique.
I said, it just feels like we're out of sync.
And I thought, odd. So then I decided, all right, if I'm going to be in observation mode and I like being here because it's very important for me to learn, and it's different because when you deliberately start going in observation mode, you don't have to do really a lot of waves. We'll talk about waves sometime in the future, but you don't have to do a wave because this is intentionally choosing to do this. So I said, okay, I'm going to be in sync with her while I'm still in observation mode. He. That tells me that what's on her mind.
Because we're both empaths.
So I'm in observation mode. I'm linking back up with her, which means my energy is now communicating. We're in sync. And so I know it was on her mind, and I accidentally embarrassed her because I was in the store and we went to Home Depot and we're not in the car in the private area of where we could talk. And so I'm observing men. There's an older man and a young man, and
because
I'm observing them.
I want to go away right now.
Because she's in sync with me.
Yeah.
And what's going on with Jen Toffel at that point in time?
And
What
so
is she
then
thinking?
I come up with the most interesting
observation
question to lay out there for Jen, which floored her, and she's like, honestly, we're not in the car. And the lady
in front of
us
heard,
and she's giggling, and then she turns back, and I go, and I go, this is no big deal, she's participating, you know, still quite in observation mode. And so, you know, some of you are going to be curious, what did she ask? So how can we say this politely? Because
you can't.
My question, it came out of nowhere, was young man, old man. You know, between the young man and old man, does the penis get wrinkly as it ages? Jen's like, oh
And
my
now,
God.
not only did you tell the people at Home Depot, you just told the whole world.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's not your penis.
No, jeez.
Anyway.
So it was
Is
just...
this mic on?
Yes.
No.
It
So
was
again, video too.
hilarious because it was seriously an observation.
And it was really
she
a good
was
question.
It's a question again I never have to worry about.
Not right on time, somebody comes on. Good afternoon. Yes. Yeah.
So it was just, but it is an observation.
Oh,
Like, really,
boy.
I'm kind of curious
It's
about
those
this.
questions.
I
What
wanna
will the
know.
medicine women reveal next week? Here on
Stay
Sepia
tuned.
Radio.
And I just want to make sure, did we finish up understanding about the thyroid woman? Why is her thyroid going off? And
Oh, what's that protection and barrier? And
oh yeah, that's right. We're talking about that. Yeah.
Well, what I was wondering, what the epiphany that I had, as you were talking about how it has to be stored somewhere, and the metabolism, and you can't process, and you want to keep a layer of protection, is that I wonder if I was mimicking my mom because of the conditioning that I was looking at as far as how I have to be intimidating to men specifically, what I'm supposed to do with those relationships, how I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do. Well, she had her thyroid taken out when I was a junior in high school.
Oh.
And so because we're seriously investigating and working on that issue so that I don't have to be intimidating and I can be open and vulnerable and I don't have to keep up those layers of protection because I don't want them. They're not serving it anymore. So I wondered if I was keeping up some layer of protection by mimicking my mom in that fashion.
Yes, because it is a genetic thing. It is a possibility. Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay, so he just gave me a tongue twister. There's no way I'm even trying to
No,
get
never
that
mind.
out of my head. Okay, so that is a good observation that you put through. We all do that because that's part of our observation, our imprint years, our modeling years, and this is how we know how to mimic our environment and create the chemical peptides
And the
to
conditioning.
understand the conditioning, the culture, all of it, and that's the code. That's the code we chose to want to come in at. And now we're unlearning what we have learned so that we can move forward into our healthier alignment. So that's a very good thing. Now, as far as this lady's other part of her thyroid issue, now it is just basically understanding, it goes back to that right from wrong, because how she functions with that daily living and the conditioning actually depletes her. Her body is actually telling her, you need to stop acting and behaving in a certain way. This reminds me of a story of the mother. I think she had like 6 kids. And so she was a very good mother, constantly cooking, cleaning the rooms, folding clothes, doing all these things. She got so burnt out because the routine had got to her so much. That's why I could never do a factory job where you're constantly doing it all the time real fast. That she developed cancer. And she developed breast cancer. And she wanted, and they interviewed her, that she wanted just help. Why can't you guys just help me? Why do I have to constantly cook and clean and do all these things? You're old enough that you can do these things. She couldn't get that across. She would say it, she would force it, she rewards and punishment, she did everything she could, but all these people were conditioned to have her do this. And like, I did it too. Everybody does it, but I used to, before I gave birth to my first son, I had conditioned my husband to expect the bed being made. And when I'm by the 8th, we had a waterbed, king-size waterbed. There was no way that I was going to my 8th month, and you couldn't get around on the side, you know, because it was up against the wall, the bed was. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to flop on that bed, 8 months pregnant, screw that. So I had made the bed one day and fell asleep in it, got up, and so it was messed up. I ain't doing it again. So then I just kind of dropped that out of my routine. When you're so used to routine, and when it changes, it disrupts who you are. You know something's out of place. So part of him is like, well, what's going on? What's different? And then he noticed the bed wasn't being made and that he had to make it. And it's not that he couldn't. It's just that we become conditioned in doing these things for one another. And he goes, don't you love me anymore? I says, what? And when he explained, I said, oh, no, I can't make the bed anymore. And what happens, no, don't be upset. But what happens is that when we change in and out of it, one of the things with my first husband was when I was trying to be somebody that was me and stop being what he wanted, one of the things he kept doing was trying to yank me back down into who he wanted me to be. I said, I'm not going to be your mother. I am definitely not going to act like your mother. You didn't marry your mother. And I said a few other rude things about it. I said, so you really need to literally...
I don't know. We don't know how long we were off either.
And thank you very much, Mike, for telling us that we lost audio. So, you know, no big deal. We learn how to recover quickly, and those has nothing to do with failing. It learns how to become mastering at what we need to do. So, I forgot.
So on to you were talking
I forgot,
about
thank
when
you.
we are in a relationship with somebody, and it's a
Oh yes, pulling me back down. The
yeah.
condition process, when you enable the relationship to be a certain way, and when you're changing and no longer in that relationship that way, the other person feels the disturbance. You're out of sync. And what will happen is they want to recover that being in sync. So
And that may have been a clue.
And that was a clue of service crash.
You become
or whatever.
disconnected.
Exactly.
You
But
become-
we recovered quickly and getting back in sync.
Right.
So that's a good sign. But literally when if you're learning a new pathway and you don't have that in your head just yet, it's not habit formed, it's not there yet, you will then go back into the old way of how somebody wants you to be. So they call it pulling you back down into their environment and their behavior and their actions. And when you learn to stand your ground, now this woman, she got breast cancer and all she did was beg, 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 please, I need help. And everybody thought, well, I am helping you, you know, you're your mom, our mom, blah, 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 blah. So when she got the cancer, she was bedridden. To the point that when she started realizing what was happening, and she was first time, she was actually receiving help, she's like, oh, I'm getting what I wanted. I couldn't change it physically. I couldn't. Now, if she created closure on certain things of her emotional and mental process of her belief systems and values, it would have helped the program in her subconscious mind so that she could have had a better transition and taken an active part of deliberately going on strike if she needed to, and having to be put up with and being okay with the claws and the teeth. What do I mean by that, Jen?
When you decide that you're not going to behave in a way that people are used to because you recognize that it's not serving you, it's unhealthy, it's not loving, you're deliberately changing that behavior. The other person wants you to behave
The way they know you.
That's how they know you.
Expectations.
They know you in that way. And what happens when you talk about the claws and the teeth, it's like when a cat is backed into a corner, the claws come out and they want to act a certain way. That person does that same thing. I mean, and I had that in my previous relationship.
And you have to be careful because we are so programmed group conscious wise that I was talking to somebody and they said, well, just go back and be what they want. You know, stop growing so much. I'm sorry, I was born on this planet for my soul, my growth. And sometimes you have to be okay as you start to grow and reclaim yourself and be who you are and stop over-identifying health. The people may not come with you. And that was one of the things that when we were out there walking in our 60-foot labyrinth and sitting in the middle under the moonlight was, oh my God, the reason why I can't receive is because if I become famous or I become in this direction, what if the people decide not to come with me? Not that I left them. What if they decide they don't want to come with me? Then I can't deal with that form of abandonment.
That's interesting because I had that situation occur. One of my good friends wanted me to behave a certain way, and when I chose to, I wanted help. This person actually admitted, oh yeah, I take her power, she doesn't do anything with it anyway.
Oh my God, I remember that, and my mouth just dropped, but I couldn't drop it because I was the teacher. But I looked and I noticed that Jen heard it. I still can't believe that she said it right out loud.
Right.
Jen's not using it. I just take it and I use it wherever I want. Oh my God.
And
well, explain. What did she mean by that? When she took your power, she used it for what she wanted. How did she do that to you?
She would slam, make comments.
Get away with that.
Get away with it.
Did she make you enact and do things?
Probably, but it was so...
She created you to be a minion.
Correct. I had to be less than her. She had to be top dog. And if I started to take my power back, if I started to want to be a leader, she didn't know what to do with that because all of a sudden, then the relationship, it tipped. The balance tipped in a different direction and she didn't know what to do.
Exactly, because you're trying to scramble, make sense of your world that you have to use false self-assuredness. Usually means you have to blame and to recruit and to recover.
Right, and we had a major falling out, and this was like right before my wedding, and she was my maid of honor, and I basically just told the whole world, but that's awesome.
Oh shoot.
Anyway.
Well.
Anyway. But the point of the matter is that I could no longer be that person anymore.
No, your soul was hurting because you're restricting it from flowing. Spirit is always creative, and pretty much you're dying off if you start to do that. And that's what that woman did. She started to die off, and because she could not physically force things to change, you know, reward and punishment and all this, and she tried to voice it but couldn't do it. But when the kids all had to step up and to help the mother survive, then they started to realize Mom does too much. Now, that's the extreme bitch slap. You don't need to go that far because neither one of us did that. We could have. We could have, because there was something that she had to change in her world, and she was presented with it, and the path switch said she had to, because there was a part of her that if she didn't, she was calling in cancer. And I said, oh hell no.
Right.
And I usually don't tell people that, but with her it's a different story. Me and her have this sort of connection. We're like twins. And I said, really, that's what you want to do? And she's looking at me and going, oh my God. And I says, now you have to stand up and deliberately take conscious choice of saying, do you have the balls, which we carry them up here, to say, I must change this, which means you have to walk up to the people that are in your life, your husband, your kids, your relatives, and say, I boldly say no to this because you want me to do it, and I have to say yes to me. And that is the hardest thing to do. When I went on strike in my house, I had to say to my husband and my kids, Mom's not doing this anymore. And they're like, what? Don't you love us anymore? What's going on? You know, and the teeth and the nails, claws come out, and you know, but you can make a smooth transition. But this is before we really, well, for me it was before I really had the healing tools. And for you, you're like, oh my gosh. So sometimes you have to take an active role, even if you have certain healing tools, you have to take an active role into taking certain action.
Right, and I had, and at this point in my life, I had those healing tools. But I still had to go up, and I still...
Nobody else is in that body but you.
Exactly.
And you wouldn't want that.
Wow, that would be awkward.
Unless you're having fun.
So, I had to go up to my now ex-husband, and it's funny to see how I needed permission. I still, as rebellious as I am, I still needed permission to do certain things, and so I said, okay, I have this other opportunity. I'm not going to do this I can't do this anymore. I can't do this job. It was selling insurance, and it was about the 9th realm of hell for me. And he said, all right, if you want to put us out on the street where we're living in cardboard boxes underneath a bridge, fine, go ahead and quit. And I'm like, that's my yes. So,
but we're trained that we have to almost get permission.
Do you want
to live our life?
Or 10 more boxes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I still had. That's funny that I had to have permission, but it was like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore because I don't want cancer.
And part of her issue that she just had recently was that she was communicating with somebody, but it was on a very, I don't want to say intimate point, but it was non-intimate. You just didn't get that closeness. And so no questions were asked, but when she had a question, she didn't ask him. And it's like, why don't you just call this person? And she's like, I don't know. You know, there's respect. Well, is there respect, or is there a part of you that has waiting for permission that it's okay to do that? And we kind of just discovered that, you know, if she wants it, you know what? Just you're going to have to be. You don't need to look for that permission. You got to look within yourself and get that permission. We're just about out of time, and it's amazing how fast the time can go. And I'm not sure what's up next, but enjoy this wonderful radio station. It's 24 hours. It's awesome. And we will be back on Monday.
8 p.m. Eastern Time?
8 p.m. To 8 to 10.
Yes.
So we want to say thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful day and enjoy
Good holiday weekend here.
Good holiday.
Exactly.
Stay safe.
All right.
And blessed.
Peace out.